Hey guys, Brian Hill with the Complete Combatant. Here to talk to you about the second part of decisional speed of shooting. It is termed the reactive speed of shooting. I think a better term would be corrective speed of shooting, but we'll talk about that in the third process video also. I like that term better. It seems to be a little bit more of a positive fix. You know, I often ask my students, if you spend a certain amount of time, like 0.2 or 0.3, depending on the distance, correcting a shot, would you spend that? And everybody says yes. But a lot of people simply just drive the gun out and press the trigger even though they don't see anything. So this is a very high level of tracking and seeing that we're going to talk about. There's some real pros to this. Number one is you get to correct what's happening. All right, so if your dot leaves and goes off to the side or your draw isn't correct, you're going to correct it. And that is the right thing to do when you don't see anything. If I need to apply pinky pressure to get the dot to drop, it is very corrective by nature. All right. It will also allow for trigger connection and management. You're going to be able to feel the trigger exquisitely. If you have a very strong tactile sensory apparatus in your finger and you feel that well, it's going to help you, and you're going to manage the sight movie, a la Gabe White, as it's moving, and you'll be able to clean it up. Okay. And it can be extremely accurate if your focus is maintained. The problem we know with people is 5 to 15 seconds is the length of their concentration. So if you have attention surplus and you tend to be very orderly about the process that you shoot in, this one will appeal deeply to you. But it doesn't mean it's the only one. It just appeals deeply to the way your mind is set up. Now the cons are this: it's slow. It takes more time. It's going to rise, it's going to come back down, it's going to go through the target, we're going to bring it back up, and then we're going to let it move back and forth and until it gets there, and then we fire. You know, there's no figure 8 of aiming. That was a drill to make you shoot when you cross the target. What it looks like when we aim is like this. So we put it on the Manus, we can really see that. And that's helped tremendously for people to recognize that it's a process of slowly eliminating and getting to the center of it. All right. You get into over-management of what you're feeling and what you're seeing. And if you over-manage something, you tend to not go soon enough, or when you do go, you say now, and it disrupts the whole pattern. So you're gathering too much information in that process. It's prone to disruption by time pressure. So if you have a strong sense of time, which is one of our senses, there's more than 5. Some people have a very strong sense of time, and you feel that clock ticking, then that puts pressure on you. And the other thing that can fail at that time is your concentration. All right, so it's very prone to time disruption and concentration failure. All right, it only lasts for so long. You'll see guys that shoot reactive paces, especially at 25 yards on the B8, you have to shoot 10 rounds. You're really gonna have to come back to the position all the time. Whereas in part 3 video, we talk about predictive. People that have really good fundamentals, can predict the sight's gonna be in the same place, can shoot this at a much greater pace. Neither side is wrong. It just depends on what's happening in your fundamentals at the time. All right. Think of it as rise and fall. This is Scott Jelinski, and then it comes back up to rise and falls, and then it settles, and that's where you're at. That's his terminology, a rise fall. All right. You're going to let it pass through the target several times, which means that it takes more time, and you're not sure of being in it until you settle it down. So that'll be an important part. Accuracy first shooters will focus on trigger manipulation, allowing the greatest amount of information with the most generous time standard. So if you tend to only shoot the center of the center, and which happens to a lot of shooters, because what's the first thing that happened to us in shooting? Well, we had to hit the target, and the better we hit the target, the better we felt about ourselves. So that became the reward in itself. And you don't think about a time limit. As long as you're hitting the center of the target, you're being rewarded. So then we start trying to shoot smaller and smaller groups, and we try to put the same bullet through the same hole, which is all admirable, but it takes a tremendous amount of time to do that. So accuracy first shooters, you'll enjoy reactive shooting because that's probably how you're shooting a lot of the time anyway, but you're going to have longer times to shoot in between, which may or may not be the right decision. Okay. Efficiency first shooters will focus on grip with this technique so that they don't have to manage the trigger. They can simply shoot faster because they have a better grip. All right. You know, we always say slow and steady wins the race. It's a lie. Fast and steady wins the race. I'll tell you that right now. Having consistency and being able to do it in the most efficient time will win the race every time. All right. You know, maybe slow and steady beats fast and sloppy. So why don't we just become fast and steady and work our way through it? I love that. Now, let's talk about how this works as far as several things are happening. So we're pressing the trigger either precisely or carefully, probably a little more precisely than carefully. In our vision, we have a really focused on the front side or on the red dot visual movie of what's going on. So we're really focused on that. If we're doing a draw, our hand speed's probably at a smooth 20 at the last part stopping, so we really glide into position to get rid of all movement. And that's due to the perceived size of the target. Now, I said perceived because the perception changes things for us. We don't all perceive the same thing. Something that makes a target bigger or smaller absolutely is the size of the target, but then we can also change the distance, which changes our perception. So a big target can appear smaller, all right? Or something's in the way. We go to shoot and there's a pillar there, or there's cover, or somebody else. So the target can get smaller that way just because something occludes our view of it. And then movement. If you're moving, or he's moving, or you're both moving, the time that you can actually hit a shot is limited because there's going to be motion in it, so you have to be able to do that. And this sort of sighting system doesn't work very well against movement sometimes. And then the highest one is risk, all right? How risky is the shot? Somebody's holding a loved one hostage and you have to put one in the eye and their head's right here. The risk is phenomenal. So target size matters, but the risk is probably gonna put more pressure on you as you go on, okay? So let's look at shooting this, okay? This is hard to demonstrate. I gotta tell you guys, this is really hard to demonstrate because it's a corrective motion for me. It's not the way that I shoot. I used to shoot like this, all right? And I was really stuck at a certain pace all the time. And the problem with that pace was it was only good at certain distances. It didn't work at every distance. So what I've learned to do is track the sights, let my fundamental, let the dot rise as it comes down. In the next video, we'll talk about what to do. But if I need to correct something, I'm simply gonna try to get that dot to the middle, all right? So I'm gonna let it rise and come back down and settle, and then I'll shoot. But I don't know if you'll be able to see it. I don't know if I can do it in the right time signature, but we'll look at it. This is very difficult to do, guys. All right, on the beep, I'm gonna do 3 shots. Watch the muzzle of the gun. So that was a pretty good demonstration. That's what I wanted to do. I really let the dot settle in the center of the target. The accuracy was phenomenal. My first shot was a 22, and my second shot was a 113, and then a 101. So we're talking about 4 or 5 times what it takes me to shoot in a different modality with this, all right? But they were accurate. I have shot a couple rounds on this target already, but everything's going through the center hunt, and it's extremely close for the camera. But that's okay. That's what reactive shooting is. I would simply correct it as it came out. Now, let's see if I can shoot the same sort of group, but with a different sort of movement that'll be in next week's video. So that was a 32, 50, and a 52, so about half the time, okay? And I'm really trying to put everything in the 10 ring in the same hole, but what I did is let the dot come up and predict it on the way down and shot it. Next week I'll talk to you guys about that. We'll explore it in detail. So reactive or corrective shooting is very important. This is where most people get stuck because they feel like it's the best, it has the least amount of risk. As armed citizens and every shot matters, this is the least risky as far as accuracy, but the most risky as far as time signature. The only thing worse than this is a very deliberate shot. But if things are not where you want them to be, you need to react to that and correct it. So I tell everybody when they decide to shoot, once the decision has been reached, whether I'm target shooting or a competition and the beeper goes off, or I'm in the street and I've got all the information I need and I've decided to shoot, then there's only 3 things that can happen in that moment. I'm going to draw the gun and see what I need to see, which is the dot in the center. I'm going to feel a good grip on the gun and I'll press the trigger. Or something's askew, my grip's not quite right, sights aren't where they're supposed to be, finger's not in the right place. I will correct it and then shoot, or I will assess. My target has disappeared, I did not hear the timer and I jumped it, okay? Or if I'm on the street, I didn't see what I thought I saw, so my finger's gonna come off the trigger, I'm gonna go to a low ready. And that is an assessment. Now there's a very limited time for that assessment to happen. The difference between shooting and correcting is the least, but between assessing and shooting is the longest. So that's where we wanna make sure that we understand the differences and use what's available to us. So we really need to see what's going on at all times. All right, guys, I hope that helps you. That is the reactive decisional speed of shooting. and or the corrective speed of shooting. Just so you see, because somebody always asks me, what's the target look like? So there it is. Guys, you know, I'm at 3 yards. Everything's going in the same spot. I had a couple on a previous demonstration or practice that I was doing, a little lower. Doesn't matter, everything's really good shooting. There's not a lot of risk, the target's enormous, but I was trying to shoot this little guy the whole time. And shooting this guy really almost requires a reactive one because it's so small. If I get into the third phase, it's likely to go a bit low with that, all right? What you're seeing in the lowness is, I should hold my red dot right here, but I was just gonna stay with the X because that's where our mind tends to drift back to. Something you gotta work on is, you know, when you're shooting at a certain level, you gotta hold the sight right there. I hope that helps you guys, all right? Please subscribe to us, hit the like button, and I know there's one of you that's gonna hit the other button. That's okay too. Ask questions, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I'll try to answer them for you. And I wanna see you guys practice. That's how you get better at these things. And explore. Don't be afraid to explore, looking for the truth of your own shooting each time you come out to the range. All right, Brian Hill with the Complete Combatant. Reach out if you want to host us. We'd love to come to your place and explore some of these ideas with you. All right, as always, measure, refine, and perform.